Yo, yo, yo. So 2019 is coming to an end, obviously. That also means that this decade is also coming to an end. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite movies of this decade, and I'm also going to talk about some honorable mentions that did not make the cut. Obviously, this is my opinion, and obviously, I did not watch every single movie of the past decade. I know I probably missed a lot of really good movies, so I know I'm gonna get flamed for this video anyways, but I don't really give a fuck. Also, I hope that everyone's having a great holiday so far. Hope everyone had a great Christmas. And yeah, with that out of the way, let's hit her up. Coming in at number 10 is Transformers Dark of the Moon, which came out in 2011. I know that a lot of people didn't like this movie, I can see why, but I've been a pretty big fan of the Transformers franchise, except for Age of Extinction and The Last Night. I'm not sure what the fifth one was called, but whatever. They sucked anyways. But I've been a fan of this franchise, and Dark of the Moon had some of the best battles in the entire trilogy. And honestly, that final battle in Chicago was one of the best final battles I've seen like ever. So I also really like the score, like the music in this movie. I'd say that besides Star Wars and Marvel, Transformers has the best soundtrack, and it really shows in this movie. Overall, the plot was kind of messy, and the movie in general is kind of messy, but it's just a fun movie to watch, and that's why it made it to my top 10. Up at number 9 is Avengers Age of Ultron, which came out in 2015. Honestly, this movie was also really messy. It wasn't really appealing to the critics, but honestly, I watched it when I was, I don't know, like when I was like 13, and I really enjoyed it. Like coming off of the first Avengers movie, like seeing Ultron, like I really enjoyed this. I think entertainment wise, Age of Ultron's one of the best in the entire MCU, and this movie has one of my favorite scenes as well, which is that whole party scene where you see the Avengers just having a good time, and Cap almost lifts Thor's hammer, which he does later on, obviously. Not in Age of Ultron, but in Endgame. Nonetheless, it was a really cool movie. I really liked the additions of Vision, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver. Vision was fucking overpowered in that movie, but he was really cool. And I wish Quicksilver stayed alive, but you know, shit happens. So yeah, not a good movie for the critics, but this is a really entertaining movie, and it's one of my favorites of this decade. Coming in at number 8 is Split, which came out in 2016. Now this is a fucking great ass thriller directed by M. Night Shyamalan. I was in suspense basically the whole time watching this movie. I really liked James McAvoy's acting in this movie, phenomenal actor. I bought into basically all 23 of his personalities. To this day, I'm still disappointed that James McAvoy didn't get an Oscar. Like, you see other people winning it, but actors who actually deserve it don't even get a nomination. That kind of pisses me off. But anyways, this is a great ass movie, and it's one of M. Night Shyamalan's best work, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. At number 7, I have Us, directed by Jordan Peele, which came out in 2019. I remember watching this with my friends, and we all enjoyed it. I don't watch a lot of horror movies, but the ones that I do watch, I feel like this one definitely sticks out a lot. After directing Get Out, Jordan Peele had some pretty high expectations with Us, and I feel like he definitely delivered. I really like Lupita Nyong'o's performance in this movie. I feel like she should get an Oscar for this movie as well. I hope she does, because she was pretty fucking good in this movie. Also, unlike a lot of people, I did not predict the twist at the end, so that made it more enjoyable because I didn't know what was going to happen. So yeah, I was pretty ecstatic at the end when I found out what really happens, and yeah, it's a great ass movie. I really enjoyed this, and it's probably one of the best horror movies I've ever watched. But then again, this is coming from a guy who doesn't watch a lot of horror, so take it with a grain of salt, but either way, like, this is still a good movie, and I really enjoyed it. Moving on to number 6 is Captain America Civil War, which came out in 2016. This is probably one of my favorite MCU movies, let alone one of my favorite movies in this decade in general. This one really sticks out because it's a lot different compared to the other Marvel movies. We see this internal conflict at the start of the movie, and it leads to a lot of fighting between the other Avengers. I thought action wise, this is probably one of the best movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I really enjoyed the fight at the end with Tony, Cap, and Bucky. That was probably one of the best hand to hand combats I've seen in a long time. It also has a really nice cliffhanger, which leads into Avengers Infinity War. Up at number 5 is Spider Man Into the Spider Verse, which came out in 2018. This is a movie that anybody can enjoy basically. Like, yes, it's an animated movie, but I feel like it can be enjoyed by all ages, adults, kids. First off, the animation's gorgeous. It looks exactly like a comic book, and there are plenty of action scenes, plenty of fights. We also get to explore a lot of lore of Spider Man, and we also get to see a lot of other crazy shit. I also want to mention that this movie has some of the best songs. It centers a lot around hip hop music, and songs like Sunflower by Post Malone and Sway Lee, also Hide by Juice WRLD. I thought those tracks were really good. This movie is also very different compared to the past Spider Man films, which really makes it stick out. Now, moving on to number 4, we have The Avengers, which came out in 2012. This is one of the first bigger movies in the MCU. We get to see all the heroes work together and fight together. We get to see that at the start, they don't really get along, but as time goes on, there's a bigger goal ahead of them, and we get to see them work together and put their differences aside. This is also the first Marvel movie that made me become a Marvel fan. Like, I watched Iron Man and Thor before this movie, but I was never really, like, super into it until I saw this movie. This also has a really good final battle, which makes it super high up in my top 10 movies of this decade. Up at number 3 is Star Wars The Force Awakens, which came out in 2015. This was by far one of the most exciting moments that I've been at a movie theater since we haven't had a Star Wars movie in so long. And seeing The Force Awakens, like, it made me really happy. It's also probably the best Disney Star Wars movie since George Lucas sold the property, but even though it's kind of a copy and paste of A New Hope, I still really enjoyed it. Again, one of my most exciting movie theater experiences, so this is really high up, and it definitely deserves to be one of my favorite movies of the decade. Well, it deserves to be on this list, basically. This was also the beginning of my love for Kylo Ren's character. I think he's a really good character, by far the best character, but by far the best Star Wars character in the Disney trilogy. And I'm really glad they followed throughout the trilogy, even though the movies weren't great, but I think it did his character justice. And at number 2 is Avengers Infinity War, which came out in 2018. Again, at the time when I went to go see it, it was by far my most anticipated movie that I've ever been to. And honestly, it's been such a nice journey seeing all these Marvel movies. I feel like everything was building up to this movie, and I don't know, it's a pretty fucking good movie. We just get to see all the characters we grew up loving, and I feel like this is the climax of the MCU. Like, I feel like Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame are like the peak of the MCU. I don't mind if Marvel movies aren't as good down the line, but if this is the peak of the MCU, I'm okay with that, because when Marvel stops making movies, people are going to remember the Infinity Saga as the best moments because of characters like Iron Man and Captain America and Thor. I also think that Thanos is by far one of the best villains in cinema. He was really, really good in this movie. You really feel for his character. You kind of pull for him too, because he's not like those villains who just do shit for no reason. They just, I don't know, I feel like he's one of those villains where you can actually hold some respect for, because you know what his motive is, and it's pretty clear throughout the movie. And you can feel kind of like you can feel sympathy for the guy. Like, I don't know, he's just a good villain. Let's just keep it at that. And also, this movie includes a lot of good fights, um, especially that battle on Titan with Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Spider Man, the Guardians, and Thanos. That was a really good fight. I also really liked Captain America's entrance at the train in Europe. That was a pretty badass scene. And yeah, it was a good time. And also, it's the first time in a Marvel movie where the good guys lose, so that's something different. Anyways, it was one of my most exciting times at a movie theater, so that's why it's this high on my list. Now, I have a few honorable mentions that unfortunately did not make the cut, those being Spider Man Far From Home, Mission Impossible Fallout, Get Out, and Nightcrawler. And finally, my number one movie of the decade is Avengers Endgame, if it's not obvious enough. Never have I ever been more curious of what happens in the movie than Avengers Endgame. I've been like, I remember last year when the trailer came out, I was waiting, like, I was checking every day to see, like, when the tickets were gonna come out, and, like, I've never been more impatient in my life, and I'm glad I got opening night tickets to see this movie, and it fucking delivered. This was not super action packed, as most of the movie were about time travel and also dealing with the events of what happened in Infinity War. And I kind of like that because we get a more human side of most of the Avengers, and we haven't really seen that a whole lot in the MCU. But then again, it is an Avengers movie, so there has to be some action. And the final climax of the movie, it definitely makes up for it. It kind of reminds me of the final battle in Ready Player One, but I feel like this is better. And it's by far the best final battle in movie history, and it's not even fucking close. Thanos was a fucking beast in this movie. Like, he went all out. He's way more powerful than the Thanos in Infinity War, like combat wise. He doesn't have the stones, but like hand to hand combat, like he fucking toyed with Tony, Cap, and Thor. I definitely feel like the original six Avengers stole the show in this movie. I like the risk they took with Thor's character. I know a lot of people don't like it, but at least at least he was pretty badass in the final battle. I did find his character pretty funny in the movie. I also like Black Widow's end for her character. She's been there's this running thing throughout all the movies where Black Widow is trying to remove the red from her ledger and doing whatever it takes to win, and I feel like she's done that by sacrificing herself. I also liked Hawkeye in this movie. Great actor, by the way, Jeremy Renner. He's a great actor. I really like his character. I know a lot of people don't like his character for some reason. I don't know why, but he's a really underrated character. Just a normal guy with a bow and arrow. You like these feel good stories for these kind of guys. I really liked Steve in this movie. We didn't see him much in Infinity War, but this definitely makes up for it. And I was really surprised he didn't die in this movie, but the ending he got when he got old and getting the life that he deserved, I really like that. And of course, Iron Man sacrificing himself with the snap. I think it's the perfect end to his character. Tony used to be very selfish, and throughout this 10-year journey, he's become a really selfless man. And to see him sacrifice himself like that, like, you would never think he'd do that, I don't know, like 10 years ago. I also know that a lot of people aren't happy with Tony's death, but his contract's ending, and like, if he's not gonna die in this movie, then when is he gonna die? Like, this is the perfect movie to end his character and his character arc off. And the way it happened, like, I really thought it couldn't have been done better. Anyways, Endgame was a great movie, and it was a great ending to the first 10 years of the MCU. That being said, these are my top 10 best movies of the decade, including some honorable mentions, which I talked about earlier. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys had a great Christmas again. And hope you guys have a great 2020. Like 2020 is gonna be a big year, so hope you guys have a good year. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you share this video, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And I'll see you guys later.